Hello again, friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to your ITFC match reaction. What are your thoughts following this afternoon's game? The penalty, the red card, the 3 goals conceded. We want to hear all your thoughts, all your feelings this afternoon. Ernie says, gutted, terrible bench up today. We're happy with when this season's done, and we move our... He says, dead weight down the road. Paul Smith, we're back better and stronger, but today always going to be a difficult day today. Dodgy sending off was also the penalty inside the area. He's not a fan of the referee, is Paul Smith. Mike, we ain't got the quality, but we'll continue the architects of our own downfall. Got to learn from it and go next season. Up and down. Don't forget we are partnered with Stowmarket Osteopaths. Don't live life in pain. Call free today on 01449613633. That's 01449613633 for Stowmarket Osteopaths. Right, joining me first of all is Steve. I have dropped a link. Steve, let's start with the red card, double yellow situation. What are your thoughts on it? I've got my own. I'll save those. What are your thoughts on the double yellow situation?
Well, first off, I'll go with the second and I'll start with the first. The second one, it was on a yellow card. It was a stupid thing to do.
Agreed. Agreed.
Not do it. Yeah. If he'd have gone through and scored, fine. We still have 11 men on the field. Yeah. But he had to get past O'Shea as well. So there was no guarantee he'd score. As for the first yellow, how that's a yellow card is beyond me. You know, Dan Burns' leg was right in front of him. He was jumping over Dan Burns' leg. And trust me, he's a big lad. Yeah. He has big legs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still think he caught Dan Burn. Yeah. You know, he saw it as a simulation. I don't agree. And I don't even think the commentators didn't really agree that it was a simulation. Top and bottom is, he adjudicated it as simulation. I think because it was, I don't know whether that could go to VAR to see if he actually fouled him, because it would have been a red card offence, because he would have been last man. You know, so why didn't that go to VAR? Because it wasn't looking for a yellow. It would have been looking for a red. And that's what I find perplexing. He didn't think that was a clear and obvious error, but later on in the game, he thought the penalty was a clear and obvious error. You know,
well, VAR didn't they? They stepped in on that one.
I'm confused with all these decisions. Yeah, but why didn't they step in for that? Because it was clear his leg was in front of him, and even if he never touched him, he had to jump over his leg. Yeah. You know, and there's always the possibility he could have caught his leg while he was jumping over. I found it very difficult to understand, but. He gave the yellow, fair enough. Yeah. You know, don't do what you did. You know, as simple as that. You know, at the end of the day, it was already a very tough game for us to get any result. And same as Arsenal last week. And both games, we've shot ourselves in the foot by making 2 stupid mistakes that you don't have to make pretty much exactly the same time, about the 37th minute. You know, we were doing all right up until then. That's what annoys me.
Yeah, we were doing okay up until then. The first half was starting to fly by a little bit. Newcastle, of course, were on top, as you would expect, but we were holding our own. We were doing fairly well. The first, it's a huge error for me from the referee for that first yellow card. He obviously feels it's simulation, but I can't see how he feels it's simulation, but he does. But that's an error. Those things happen in football where referees make mistakes. They're only human beings. The second yellow card is silly. It's really silly by Ben Johnson. You know your yellow card, whether it's a deserved yellow card or not. You can't make it. You can't make it at any point of the game and anywhere on the pitch on a yellow card, and he should know better there. So that's a silly one. Referee's made a mistake for the first yellow. He's made a silly error for the second one. The penalty.
Thinking about last week, you know, it makes it so much harder for everybody else when you get sent off. It only happened last week, you know, so. Players should have that in their mind and say, we can't get sent off here, because we know we just know what's happened when we get sent off. It gets very difficult for us, you know. So I really find I'm not, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not blaming Johnson. I can't blame Johnson too much, because in that moment, it was probably an instinctive thing.
Yeah, probably was. Yeah, absolutely. You just got to know that you can't do it on a yellow.
Yeah, it's irritating when it happens.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it does, but you have, as a player, I feel got to know where you are in the game, in the sense of on a yellow, and you've got to try and you've got to be careful. And that the same way we asked Sam Morsey for so long to walk that line between not getting a yellow but not really changing too many aspects of his game. You've got to do it as a player in that situation. For me, you've got to handle it better. Harps, and we'll move on to the penalty. because that's where things went drastically downhill. Obviously, Enciso deemed to have fouled Newcastle's, I think it's Murphy. Referee says no penalty on the field. VAR, his infinite wisdom and glory, says, hold my beer. I'm here. I'll put myself into this game when no one's asked me to, and gives, looked at it, called the referee over. I said on Wednesday's show, once the referee's been called over, I don't think you'll ever see anything but what the VAR decision is going to be. And lo and behold, it's overturned from an on-field call of no penalty to a call of penalty. And Harp says in the chat, explain, please, if it's a clear error by the referee for the penalty, why did he check it 15 times? Well, 15 times, 100 times. Steve, is that a penalty, or was the referee right on the first instance where he said it wasn't a penalty?
If you want to be really different, I'll be honest here. If that was us, I'd be saying it's a penalty. Yeah, he did catch him. Yeah?
Really?
No, he did. He did catch him. He did have all on one of the no. You got to let me give you the context before you answer what I'm saying.
I will.
He said it was no penalty, and I looked at it when the referee looked at it, and I said it was no penalty. And the top and bottom of it is, if it was clear, the VAR is supposed to only interfere if it's clear and obvious. And even from all those replays, it wasn't necessarily clear and obvious.
Agreed.
I'm going at it, it's a penalty, as if, if that was one of our players, I'd be wanting it. So I can understand, why the Newcastle fans were saying it was a penalty, because I'd say it was if it was one of our players, But I don't think, to be totally fair with you, I don't think the referee made a mistake because it was so weak, All he did was touch his arm and he went down. I'm sorry. He needs to be stronger in that situation. That was him buying that penalty. I don't think it was something, it wasn't malicious. He didn't intend to touch him. And I think the contact started outside the box anyway, but they only started playing it on the VAR inside the box. But if you look at it on, when the TV replayed it, the contact started outside the box. But then we go into that debate. But I don't think there was enough. And even the commentator on the TV said that was not enough for a penalty. You know what I mean? The player should have been stronger. He was in a golden opportunity to get a shot on goal, and his first thought was go down. That's poor. That's really poor. And if that's a penalty, ours at Leicester is a penalty all day long.
Well, this is it. And at Man City and at various other times of the season, not just for us, for other football clubs. And I'm not one that likes to sit here and talk about referees, but sometimes you have to talk about what the game was and how the game was played. And that was a huge moment in the game. 0-0. Yes, you're a man down, so you're probably going to go on and get beat anyway, but it's still a huge pivotal moment in the game. It gives them a lead just before half-time, and it's huge. You can't underestimate how big of a decision that was. And I almost feel sorry for the referee in a way. I know he's gone to the screen and looked at himself, so he's obviously a big part of that problem. But VAR have called him over and said, you need to review the decision you have made as we feel it is incorrect. That already is, for me, it's putting doubt into the on-field referee's mind, because you're not called over to the screen, are you, Steve? Unless there is a situation where they feel it could have been a wrong decision. And it wasn't, for me, a wrong decision, Steve.
I think I've seen one occasion where the referee has gone with his own decision. That's one. In all the VAR,
I've never seen any. So you've seen one more than me in that situation.
That wasn't even in this. Wasn't even in this country. I think it was an international game. I think it's one occasion I've seen it. You know what I mean? But the top and bottom, as soon as he goes to that screen in that environment, he's not going to do anything else. If he doesn't give that,
he's being talked through the headset, isn't he?
0-0. Yeah, but if he doesn't give that and it ends up 0-0, he doesn't get out of Newcastle. Seriously think that the pressure he was under in that situation when VAR, who's sat in Stockley Park saying go and have a look, and he's in the middle of a screen, middle of the pitch with about 60,000 Newcastle fans around him, the pressure he's under to make when it's 0-0 to make that decision, must have been phenomenal, and they showed him so many replays of it to try. It's as if they tried to convince him he was wrong.
Well, I think you could look at anything on a football field with a million cameras and convince yourself of any decision at any point in time in football. It's one of those games. It's so subjective. If you had one shot of something and you looked at it 60 times, you could convince yourself 4 or 5 times of a different outcome each time. I really feel that with football. But it was fun.
That's maybe where I was coming from when I said I think it was one, because it was also because if it was ours, I would have wanted one. But all the viewings from VAR, I didn't think it was from watching it on the telly, but all the viewings of VAR, especially the second lot where it was from the side view, it sort of convinced me. So I can understand how the referee got convinced. I just think they're interfering too much. The referee doesn't think it's a foul. Yeah, if you're not completely sure, and they couldn't have been, because you don't show someone 20 times if you're not sure. So if you're sure, if you're convinced. And the referee couldn't have been convinced. So he seen it once and said, yeah, I made a mistake. He didn't. He had to see it about 20 times. So he obviously was not convinced. And it looked like they convinced him into it. You know what I mean? And I just think the referee was poor. It's like at the corner where there was like pushing between Burns and Delap. Doesn't go, Burn and Delap. He doesn't go up to and have a word. He goes up and books them both. I'm thinking, that's just poor. Just talk to them and tell them to stop it. You put them both then in a position where they might get sent off for a bit of argy-bargy, which happens at every corner. I just think the referee really was poor. I don't think he knew. Or I think he wasn't in control of the game. Because there were lots of situations, not just these big situations, there were lots of situations, where I don't think he quite got the right decision. I'm not a big one for having to go at referees, because that's just, at the end of the day, it's football. And
they're human beings and they make mistakes.
Anyway.
Yeah, my issue here is not so much with the referee, it's with the VAR. You're sat in a studio with 2 or 3 referees, ultimate camera angles, and that is not, as you say, a clear and obvious decision. You mentioned poor, and you mentioned the word corners. So let's talk about set pieces, because once again, we are poor. It doesn't matter if you've got 11 players, 10 players, or 5 players. We are incredibly poor, Steve, at set pieces. Short corners, again, have done us. I've been banging the drum since October about how poor at set pieces we are, both attacking and defensive. We always hear the old, we're learning, we're growing, we're adapting. Well, one part of our game that's certainly at learning is our set pieces, and that was on show again today. Awful defending once again.
I'm trying to think, where did the goals come from? I don't think any goals came from set pieces, did they?
Yeah.
Well, they weren't.
One that loops over Palmer.
That wasn't from an initial phase of a corner. That had been played out to about 3 or 4 passes after that.
It's still a corner, Steve. You've still got to assert yourself and be alive.
I heard the commentators blaming Palmer. What can Palmer do there? Unless he's 15 foot, he's never getting that. I'm sorry.
Unless he's Dan Burr, he's never going to catch it, is he?
No, the thing is, every goalkeeper, when the ball's over there, comes to the near post so they don't get embarrassed at the near post. So they all come over here. That, for me, was the defenders weren't strong enough against Dan Burn. And to be fair, the guy's about 6'9" and built like a monster. If he's running, he's got the run on you, I don't care who you are, you're going over. I do think it was a soft goal to concede, but you also got to look, it's a lovely chip over Palmer. Palmer's chasing back to try and get to it after it's gone over him. Not much he can do about that.
Well, we see it time and time again, and think, something's got to change.
There's work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. But
yeah, I'm tired of hearing that though, because you're not showing. There's certain elements of the game where you should be learning, or okay, if you are learning, you need to learn quicker, and that's an element of our game where we need to learn quicker.
Agree, but you can't take it away from the fact the crossing to the box was superb, perfectly delivery. How do you stop that? I don't think you can. And you've got a bloody great big monster running at you. Can you be stronger? Yes, but they weren't.
Okay.
Can you practice that? Yeah, sack them and get new ones, get bigger ones, stronger ones. That's the only way to stop that. You can't practice. How do I defend against this big monster if he's bigger and stronger than me? That you can't do that on a training ground unless you've got a bigger and stronger player than them.
Okay.
The only way to do that is to sack the defenders and get new ones.
Rob says, undone by another short corner for their second goal. Third game in a row. What are we doing at the back? Question coming in, or not a question, but a comment from Yippee Yay. I'm more frustrated at how predictable we've become. I would say amen to that. Same 4-2-3-1, well, same 4-2-3-1 every game. Same approach, no matter who's playing. What's the division trying something different? And of course, Mike. I know you and Mike had a, or not you and Mike. It was you and JG on Discord had a back and forth. You and somebody before the game. Mikey says it's the first time I've madness do the same thing and getting the same results. Why not put 3 in the midfield? Whether you think 3's the answer, 5's the answer, 5 defenders, 1 defender, whatever you think the answer may be. Is there an argument, Steve, to try something different, particularly now in the last couple of games where it's done and dusted, you're relegated. Because isn't Mike right? You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results, and we are so predictable.
Well, yeah, but we also thought that against Bournemouth, we've got to win. You know, we also thought that against Chelsea, we should have won that game. You know, it's not necessarily that the system's wrong. The players aren't good enough. Yeah, the top and bottom of this, we could have 3 of our midfielders. You know, one of their midfielders is better than our 3. So
True.
we play 10? We play 10 midfielders? Why don't we play 2 goalkeepers? I don't think it's illegal. You know, I don't think there's rules on how many goalkeepers we can play. You know, I don't mind playing a different formation. You know, the frustrating thing is everybody keeps saying, well, let's play 3 in midfield, let's play 2 up front. At the end of the day, we've had Kieran McKenna for 3 years. He has played 3 in the midfield occasionally, and he's played 2 up top occasionally. Yeah. So we can keep asking for something. Yeah, occasionally.
What, 2 up top?
Yeah, for about 10 minutes.
You can count on one hand, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Probably about 10 minutes in about 3 games. You know what I mean?
One being Cam Burgess.
Same with 3 in midfield. He's probably played about 10 minutes of 3 in midfield for about 10 games, over about 3 games. But the top and bottom of it is that's how he plays. If we want 3 in midfield, well, sack him and get Frank Lampard.
Yeah, see, I disagree. I disagree on that. I mean, you can't be so wedded to a 2-man that your only route is, if you want to see a different formation, you have to remove the manager. Like he has different formations in his locker.
He hasn't got players though. We look at our 3 midfielders, our 4 midfielders, yeah, and what? One of them's injured, so we got 3 midfielders. That's all we've got. Yeah, you know, we can argue then. Oh, we could have a youth player. So if we play all 3 midfielders, yeah, that's everyone we've got. Everyone. If you get an injury, we're knackered.
No, fair. That's fair. That is fair with the injuries you've got.
I have no problem. I like 4-3-3. And I've said we've got players to play 4-3-3. Yeah. But unless we get I'm not about the attacking players, you know, a striker with 2 wide men, just like Coventry do. You know, they play attacker with like Hadji out on the right and someone out on that. We've got the players to do that. Yeah. We just haven't got the midfield. They're not good enough as it is. Yeah. And sticking another bad midfielder in a bad midfield doesn't make you better. It just makes you a little bit less bad. You know, would the midfield cut through a 3 midfield? Of course it would. And it would just leave a gap somewhere else, because whether you like it or not, you know, if you're putting 3 in midfield, you're going to have to take it away from somewhere else. You know, we had a back 5 with 3 in midfield, and we had started up. We'd have had to have ended up going to a 5-2-3. And top and bottom, I still think the cut's open, you know.
Oh, yeah, they're quite, particularly at 10 men, you know, their quality was always going to shine through.
I don't necessarily think it was, and this is not me having a go at people who, I don't mind playing something different. I even turned around to Mike this morning and said, instead of Greaves playing left back, I'd have played Boniface. Why not? You know? I think Greaves played pretty well out there. I was impressed with him. For me, he was probably one of our best players. But the top and bottom of it is we're just not good enough. At the end of the day, we've grown so quickly, we were going to hit a wall somewhere, and we've hit the wall. It's bloody upsetting. I'm devastated. But the top and bottom of it is, sometimes you have to hit a wall to go backwards to come back. You know, right. Villa hit a wall, went backwards and come back. Now look where they are. You know, like Newcastle hit a wall, went backwards, come back. Now look where they are. You know, sometimes you have to dip your toe in the water and see what it's like and say, Christ, we're not good enough. We need more. We need better. And when you come back, and yes, we can all make the argument saying, well, we might not come back. But okay, if that's the way you want to think about it, fine. I think we will. I think we're more than capable of coming back next season. And then we come back and we give it our best, and we get different, maybe different styles of players, different types of players, because we know what doesn't work. Yeah. You know, because I've always thought of this is like, it's not free hit. I don't like that term. But we built a championship team in League One. Yeah. We didn't build a Premier League team in the Championship because we didn't have the money we couldn't spend the money to do it because we'd have breached PSR. And B, we didn't have the time to do it. Most of these teams have spent years in the Championship buying players in, yeah, to build up to a Premier League team, and they didn't do it. And when they do, they've had years to do it. We had one season. It was like in and out. We didn't have time to build a Premier League. So we had to build it while we're in the Premier League. And guess what? That is hard. Because if you get the wrong player, like we did with Muric, yeah, it costs you several games. And by then, it's too late. So I don't mind playing different formations. I don't think Kieran McKenna's going to play different formations. We've had him for 3 years. And like I said, we probably played a front two for about half an hour since he's been here, and probably 3 in midfield for about half an hour since we've been here. Keep asking, I think the definition of madness is asking for the same thing when you know it's not going to happen.
Fair point. All right, Paul P. Midfield is a complete rebuild in the summer. Mike D. If Morsey and Taylor are on our side next season, the recruitment has gone horribly wrong. Mark said, I think it'll be really hard to come straight back to the Prem with this team. We had 2 good chances on the first half, and we defended very well. So there's Ted Nani from Canada. We've got Sam. The thing is, there's no fight. That's what annoys me. Yeah, it can feel like that. But you are 10 men, and you are obviously.
And I do slightly disagree with that, because they were still having a go. Right towards, even when Hurst came on, they were still having a go. They weren't good at it, but we've not been good all season. But they were having a go. You're playing a team who's 3rd in the table. Alone by their country.
Well, this is it. They are a fantastic side, Newcastle, but I can kind of see where I think Sam's coming from with his opinion. I hesitate to agree with it, because it's really difficult. 11v11, 10v11. It's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
You've not even got the closeness of a league run to really sort of, I don't know, add fuel to that fire. Because you've known for a couple of weeks players aren't silly. They'll come out and say the right things in the press, Steve, but the league table says the league table, and you've been relegated for a couple of weeks and all but name. So 11v10 with that hanging over you as well, it's really hard. And I see where Sam's coming from. I don't necessarily agree.
Understand the point, because
with it. No, I'm with you. Yeah,
it's like I said. It's like what Mike said. At the end of the day, I can't remember what it was he said now, but it's like. We really are in a tough situation. You don't know what you're going to face until you get there, and it's much harder than even I thought it was. And the top and bottom of it is everybody can turn around and say, well, I think we've been spoilt so much for the last 2 years. Yeah, we expected a little bit more. Yeah, and it was harder than even I imagined it was. Yeah, but the top and bottom of it is, we got there, we get the money, we go back and try again. Will it work? I don't know. But what were we going to do? We could have spent 200-300 million on, I don't know, Premier League All-Stars who are about 28, 30, and it still not work. And then they all bugger off and we get nothing. I don't know. I think we've done it the right way. Is it the way everybody approves of? No, it's not. But I don't think we're going to do it in a way everybody approves of. We're going to do it in the way that the manager approves of. And we've had so much success. I still say that we've had so much success. I think people are a little. I don't like to say it's spoiled, because Ipswich fans are not spoiled. They've had so much misery. Yeah, they deserve a little bit of success. But I think they expected too much. We've had Evans for like God knows how long. You can't get rid of like over a decade's worth of rot in 3 years. You just can't. We're looking like the Cat 1 Academy might start in the summer. The training grounds started being built. We're bringing in new youth players all the time. This is a ship that will turn, but it's turned too quick for everything to catch up. Like, some players couldn't keep up with the journey. Everybody know, every player has not been able to keep, maybe 1 or 2, has not been able to keep up with the journey. And we've just gone too fast for everyone. It's heartbreaking. I understand that. And I'm just as disappointed as everybody else. I'm not sitting here clapping that we're going down, because I'm not. I wanted to stay up. But I'm also a realist. And I look at some of the teams in there and I think to myself, bloody hell, But if you look at what we've done over the last 3 years, I'm still proud. I'm still proud of the way we are, because I remember where we are under Evans, and I'll tell you what, when we were there under Evans, and we were getting pumped every week at Barrow and places like that. You know what I mean? I was horrible. Who was our, when transfer window was open? What was it? Some of the players that we were getting excited about, Dom Telford and things like that. Come on, that we're not there now. So surely we've got to be happy about that.
Well, yeah. Golden Ghosts, welcome back to the platform. I've not seen you in a while. Wonder why I'm seeing you now, but I'll read your comment out. That 11th place preseason prediction was a bit optimistic. Trigger Lee, my mate Trigger, hurt so much when relegation is officially confirmed. Going relentless next season to get back. Cheers for the comment, Lee. Hope you're well. Speak soon, hopefully. Chris Boyd, you can't track the players, you need to survive. The gap we need to bridge will be even bigger at best 2 seasons at a time, and we probably don't bounce back straight away anyway. It's just going to get bigger. Dom said we bought poorly and didn't have enough Premier League quality players. Ultimately, and big out, a team made up of championship players. We weren't going to stay up. Steve, I appreciate.
Can't mention a point about that. And it was
of course you can, and we'll close. Yeah, that's it. Last point.
It was a point I heard from. It was actually, I think it was Roy Keane who said it. And at the end of the day, and everybody says we should have got championship experience, Premier League experience, but you've also got to think about those players have to come. Yeah. Majority, I would say, vast majority, probably 90, 99%, 95%, wouldn't go anywhere near a promoted side because they know damn well if you go near a promoted side, you're probably going to get relegated. Yeah, they'd rather sit on the bench, for a middle of the road Premier League team than go anywhere near. No, seriously. And then you're talking wages. We've got the lowest wages in the Premier League. If you want to start paying 150,000 a week, let's remember, Leeds are going up and they're already talking about paying £150,000 a week for 2 players. If you want to do that, but you're taking a bloody big gamble because if those don't pay up, they're on your books even when you go down. We're trying to do it in a sustainable way. Now people can turn around and say, well, that's not good enough, you're not going to make it. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Maybe we're never going to be a sustainable Premier League team again. I don't know. We might have been out of it far too long for that to happen. We can hope. We can try. Yeah. I don't want to put this club at risk. Yeah. Just so that I can say, just have a look at Leicester now. They're going down to points deductions and all that and the other. They put everything on winning the Premier League, and now they're going down with the same time as us. They actually went down before us, and they're going to get points deductions. So
well, we don't know for sure, but we think it, right?
It's pretty. They're going to get summer. The EFL's waiting for them with glee. The top and bottom is like you can't always risk, putting all the money on black and hoping it comes up black because it may not. It may come up red and you get burned. So I don't mind us, taking it easy and being sensible about it. That's my opinion. I know others will have others, and everybody's welcome to their own opinion. But that's just my opinion. I'd rather the club be in a solid position to go again.
Yeah, I think they will go again. But we'll let this one simmer for a bit. We are back live tomorrow, earlier time of about 12:10. I've got to go to the hospital.
And once again, credit to all the fans. They were loud and proud all day, and it was so impressive.
Yeah, it really was. They always are, though. We travel so well, and those fans really do deserve probably, at times a lot more, and today certainly a big round of applause. But thank you for joining us. Like the show if you can. Subscribe to the platform, and don't forget, because I'm at the hospital tomorrow afternoon, we are live earlier at 12. About 12:10, 12:15. So do join us. More reaction, more opinion, and we might finally find out the answer to the question of where's those C points deductions that Matt promised me. They're never going to come. But until then, Stephen Parry, thank you for joining me. Thank you, the audience. Take care. Enjoy your Saturday night, and we'll speak soon. God bless.